7 most amazing animal stories you love. For many years, animals have played a huge part in the life of humans. They are like little friendly companions that might really go with you through it all. Everybody loves animals. They are some of our best and most loyal little friends, maybe even family. Animals are capable of so much more compassion, love, bravery, and ingenuity than most people realize. If you love animals like we do, what better than some amazing animal stories? So, here are some of the most amazing animal stories we could find. Number 1. Unsinkable Sam. Originally named Oscar, the black and white cat was in the fleet of the Nazi regime, the Kriegsmarine, and ended it in the Royal Navy. He was on board Bismarck, the HMS Cossack, and the HMS Ark Royal. The amazing part is, while all those 3 ships sank, Sam survived them all. That's why naming him Unsinkable Sam was not surprising at all. I think it was probably better naming him that one hell of a lucky cat. It all started when his first adventure began while he was on board of the Bismarck ship when it sank, and only 118 from its crew from over 2,200 survived. Hours later, Oscar was found floating on a board and got picked up from the water. The HMS Cossack sank while the cat served on board for the next few months as the ship carried out convoy escort duties in the Mediterranean and North Atlantic. On October 27, 1941, the Cossacks sank the west of Gibraltar, and Oscar was found clinging to a piece of plank. He was the only survivor. When he was found, they didn't know his name, so they called him Oscar. After that, Unsinkable Sam was then adopted by the crew of the HMS Art Royal. The ship survived several near misses and gained a reputation as a lucky ship. But the luck didn't last long, as in November 14, 1941, this ship too sank. At that time, Sam was found clinging to a floating plank by a motor launch. Due to his unbelievable stories, the cat was then named Unsinkable Sam. Eventually, he was sent back to the UK where he remained at a home for sailors in Belfast until the end of his earthly days. Number 2. Bobby the Wonder Dog. In the summer of 1923, a couple, Frank and Elizabeth Brazier, left their home for a vacation in their hometown in Indiana. They had a 2-year-old Scotch Collie mixed dog who was named Bobby that they took with them on their trip. While they almost arrived to their destination, they stopped for gas. That's where 3 dogs attacked Bobby and chased him away. The couple was not worried as they knew their dog was brave enough to handle the situation and meet them back at the house they were staying in. When he didn't show up, they started searching for him everywhere. They even advertised their missing dog in the newspaper. Eventually, the couple returned to their home heartbroken after losing hope in finding their dog. After 6 months, their dog showed up on their doorstep. Bobby, mangy, scrawny, feet worn to the bone, appeared to have walked the entire distance to Silvertone by himself. The dog's story spread quickly over newspapers across the country. Upon his death in 1927, Bobby was buried with honors at the Oregon Humane Society. Portland Mayor George Baker gave the eulogy. Rin Tin Tin, a German shepherd who was a Hollywood film star, later laid a wreath at his grave. Number 3. Cher Ami. Cher Ami was a pigeon that became one of the greatest heroes of World War I. He was one of almost 600 carrier pigeons employed by the U.S. Army Signal Corps during the First World War. Major Whittlesey sent Cher Ami to the American lines with a note that simply read, "We are along the road parallel to 276.4. Our own artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it," with fire raining down on them from all sides. The brave bird flew straight into the German fire, dodging bullets as he went. However, his luck did not last for long. Cher Ami was hit in the chest soon after takeoff, as American soldiers watched in horror as their last hope hit the ground. Against all odds though, Cher Ami got up again. Wounded but still alive, the little bird took flight again. By the end of the trip, he covered 25 miles in roughly half an hour. He arrived at base heavily wounded but alive. The Croix de Guerre with Palm Military Decoration of France awarded to Cher Ami. Army medics were able to save Xiaomi's life, but his right leg was barely attached to his body and he was blind in one eye. However, because of Xiaomi's delivery, the artillery stopped and took up new firing coordinates away from the American lines. The next day, shells started to fall on German positions, relieving pressure on the bloodied 77, and the battle turned in America's favor. On October 8th, 194 men made it back to the American lines thanks to Xiaomi's sacrifice. Number 4. Ham the Chimp. Way long before Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin set foot on the moon, the hero of America's human spaceflight program was a chimpanzee named Ham. On January 31st, 1961, Ham became the first hominid in space. Other non-hominid animals had ventured into space before Ham, but he and his fellow astrochimps were trained to pull levers and proved it was physically possible to pilot the Project Mercury spacecraft. And unlike many other unfortunate primates in the spaceflight program, Ham survived his mission and went on to have a long life. Ham proved that mankind could live and work in space. Reads his grave marker in New Mexico. Number 5. Balto. On January 1925, doctors in Nome began to see symptoms of deadly infection, diphtheria. More than 500 miles away was the closest place with supplies of life-saving serum. Alaska's brutal winters, where temperatures could plunge to 50 below and snow and ice are measured in yards, made travel impossible. By dog sled, the trip usually took about a month, too slow to head off a pandemic that could kill thousands. A relay was the only hope. 20 mushers volunteered for what would become known as the Great Race of Mercy. One Leonard Sapala had some of the best dogs around, huskies imported directly from Siberia. Sapala chose his most experienced dog, 12-year-old Togo, as his leader. Another musher, Gunnar Kasson, put his faith in a green youngster, 3-year-old Balto. Despite his inexperience, Balto lived up to the challenge. Even when winds lifted the sled and all the dogs high into the air, he stayed on course. He and Kasson charged into Nome just before dawn on February 2nd. It had taken an unimaginably swift 127.5 hours, about 5 days, to deliver the precious cargo. Number 6. Shrek the Sheep. Shrek was a merino sheep, a castrated male. He became famous after escaping his enclosure and evading the shearers for 6 years by hiding in caves. Merino sheep are usually shorn annually, but Shrek managed to escape the blade for 6 years straight. When he was finally caught, the sheep was unrecognizable. He looked like some biblical creature, said John Perham, Shrek's owner. During his cave-living days, Shrek grew a fleece weighing 27 kilograms, roughly 6 times the average fleece produced by a merino sheep. His fleece contained enough wool to make suits for 20 large men. Shrek shot to fame immediately. He was shared live on New Zealand's national television, and his fleece was auctioned off to raise money for children's medical charities. Shrek met the then Prime Minister of New Zealand, Helen Clark, and became the subject of children's books and made charity appearances. Unfortunately, Shrek was euthanized on June 6, 2011, at the age of 17. Number 7. Moko the Dolphin. Moko the bottlenose dolphin was famous between 2007 and 2010 for playing with humans along the east coast of New Zealand's North Island. He used to show up every few days to play with swimmers. One day, a man from New Zealand found 2 whales on the shore of the beach. He directly contacted his neighbor who worked in the Department of Conservation. The worker and some rescuers tried for more than 2 hours to rescue the mom whale and her calf by floating them back into the water, but they were really stuck in the sand and couldn't find a way to save them. The man worker started to consider killing the 2 whales to relieve them from a slow and painful death, until Moko arrived. As witnesses said, Moko and the dolphins started making noises as if they were communicating. Slowly, the whales started to move out of place while Moko was leading them to their way back. They changed their whole attitude from being distressed to following the dolphin right back straight into the sea. Moko successfully did what humans couldn't do that day, and people were happily surprised and amazed. Unfortunately, Moko died on July 7, 2010. His body was found on Matakana Island near Tauranga, and still no one knows the cause of death until this day.